What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another video. So as you probably already noticed, I have pulled out all of my white line goodies and I have my subframes here ready to be refinished. This one, I've already hit it with like a wire wheel. This is the rear subframe, and hit it with a wire wheel, actually an angle grinder in some spots where some of the rust was a little bit bad. And what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna use some of this POR15. This one is a really small, it's like a really small amount. It's like 4 ounces, and it should be plenty to do both of these subframes. And then after I do that, I'm just gonna hit it with some of this SEM Trim Black Ultra. People say really good things about this paint, and it is for lots of different types of surfaces, including steel, stainless steel, and aluminum. So should be good with that. And then, yeah, obviously the white line goodies are down here. I have most of it pulled out. End links. We have front and rear adjustable 24mm sway bars, and then their little kit for the brackets in the back, which are pretty nice, and some new bushings, as well as these like little, I don't even know what you call these. They're like little keepers, I guess, so the like bushings can't slide around. And today I actually was able to find a 2015 13:1 quick ratio steering rack. That's what this is here. So pretty lucky to find this thing because it has pretty low mileage. The guy pulled it out when he only had 40,000 miles on the car because he wanted to replace it because one of these fittings right here was leaking, and he wasn't sure if he could get it to not leak. So I rolled the dice. The guy gave it to me for 200 bucks. I rolled the dice, and I assumed that I should be able to get it to stop leaking. So fingers crossed, hopefully we're able to do that. These cost like $800 brand new, so it'd be really sweet to have a 13:1 steering rack in this car without having to break the bank for it. So I'm really hoping that we can work this out. I have rebuilt one of the older racks from like the 2003 WRX, and it worked really well, and it's still in a buddy's car that I built for him, and it still hasn't leaked. And so I imagine if I've been able to rebuild one before, I should be able to get this one to not leak. Now, because I have this one, I'm going to have to retrofit it into this front subframe. I thought that this newer style subframe, this is the one from like the 06-07 WRX, and I believe the 05-07 STI had the same subframe, but I could be wrong. I was told that if you have this subframe, then you won't have to cut out anything in these areas here to get it to fit, but I just test fitted it up there, and you definitely do need to open these holes up a little bit. So we're gonna have to do that, and then I think what people end up doing is they have to put spacers in here. Otherwise, this thing doesn't mount up correctly. Because I think what happens is like this piece, this bracket is probably further down on the casing here, and this probably hits before these are flush with the mounting surface. So people use like this, I don't know, it looks like to me like maybe like a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch spacer on these parts right here to get it to sit in there correctly. And one thing I wanted to just quickly discuss is this rear subframe that I have that I'm refinishing. This one's really cool because it actually has those solid bushings that only came on the STI rear subframe. That's what these are right here. These don't have the rubber bushing that some of the other ones do. As you can see, they are flat, just raw steel. And basically what the rubber bushing does, obviously, is it eliminates like road noise and vibration and things like that. And with this one, with these hard mounts, you get a lot of that feedback, and you know, that's what we want with this car, to be honest. We're not going for like full on race car stuff, but more of that stuff that I can have to get better feedback on the car, I'm gonna be way more stoked about. All right, guys, so the first step in this stop rest kit is to clean it with their degreaser. I've already mixed this in this little spray bottle. They tell you to dilute it 4 parts water to 1 part of the degreaser / cleaner. So that's what I did in here. So we'll just spray this thing all down. I already did the underside of this thing. You know, aside from the little rust spots, this thing's actually in pretty dang good condition. And I'm just doing this because I want it to last, you know? I don't know that I'll keep the subframe forever. But even if I don't, I would like someone to be able to still use it. There's some subframes by, God, who makes them? Is it TSS? I know there's a company that makes these really cool subframes. They're like tubular and they look really sick. They look really lightweight, really rigid. And so I don't know, maybe one day I'll upgrade to one of those, or maybe one day my fabrication skills will be up to par to where I could build one myself. Seems like a tall order, but you never know. Let's give her a little rinse with the hose. All right, so I went ahead and used the cleaner / degreaser on the front subframe as well, rinsed that all off. The rear is now dry, so we're gonna move on to this next step, which is the metal prep. So let's see what it says here. For us, keep surfaces wet with metal prep for a minimum of 30 minutes. All right, so I'm actually gonna dump this into the spray bottle. I think that's gonna make our lives a lot easier. All right, so it looks like we should just wait, let this sit here for about 20 minutes. While this is sitting on here, I'm gonna start on the front subframe and see about opening up those holes for that steering rack. Okay, so grab this rack. Yeah, so these are the engine mounts. So this is the front. So the steering piece needs to stick out of this side. So right down in there, as you can see, these hard lines, they just barely hit the subframe opening right there. And I have the other lines through the other opening, and these holes aren't lined up very well yet. Like, this needs to come this way in order for them to line up on the mounting piece there. Obviously, we can't get it to go that way until we can get this to clear. So I think maybe I'll just start on this side, make a little mark here, and try to open this up before doing anything else. I don't know if we'll have to modify this piece. These lines are hitting that piece right there, this bracket, and I was thinking we might have to make a cut just like at an angle. But I think I'm gonna wait on that part. I'm gonna do the opening first and just see what happens. I wanna cut as little as possible off this subframe. All right, I'm just gonna make a little mark in here, like where these lines are. Like that. Start with that anyway. You can always cut more, right? You can always cut more, you can't add any. There's a little mark right there. I'm gonna come in with the angle grinder, notch, notch, somehow try to fit the blade in there. All right, so making some progress here. As you can see, these are getting pretty close to being lined up with the holes in there. I did notch this little piece out right there. It's just a tiny bit off the corner, as you can see compared to that side. We might have to do a little bit more right here in order for this hard line to be able to push past that, because we do need this to move that direction slightly. Let's see, what else? I'm wondering if I need to notch out this side as well. These lines are still hitting when I push this piece all the way through, but I'm wondering if I just keep, because this isn't actually touching the very edge down in there, and so maybe once we can push that forward, we can probably pull this whole thing this way. Maybe those will drop right in. But I'm gonna step away from this for just a minute because this has been sitting for a while. You can tell it's been doing some work because on those bare metal spots, it's looking all white. So I'm gonna go hose this off. We'll bring it back in and we will start putting a coat of the POR15 over the top of this. Hopefully we can do like all of it. I'll probably do the bottom and let it like kind of set up and then flip it over and do the top. I guess it kind of takes a little while for that stuff to dry. All right guys, so this thing's looking pretty dang dry. So let's go ahead and coat it with the POR15. And I did finally get the steering rack to fit. As you can see, our holes are all nice and lined up down here. And I have the other side of the hard lines through that side. I didn't have to cut anything on that side. Now I'm just trying to figure out what I'm gonna do about a bracket here. Probably don't need a bracket, but it would be nice to have something that bolts like this did from the other model, and then also the original bracket from the steering rack goes something like that, but the holes don't actually line up. This piece is a little bit longer than these two holes, so but yeah, I think we can figure out how to fabricate something in there that'll fit. And I mean, worst case, this side, the bracket over here fits just fine, this piece. I might need some spacers for it, but even if we just had to use bolts on each side of this, it would still be pretty damn solid on the subframe, but it would be nice to have that extra integrity there. So I'll show you all the details of what I cut out and how I did it, but let's throw some of this coating down because this stuff, like I said, I think it takes a little while for it to kind of cure and dry to where you can paint over it. So do that real quick and then I'll give you the rundown on that.
We are safety music, automatic. Jump up, ride, line, I'm a 24, funny line, I'm a cook. I need a pretty bitch, I drop a foot, so when me push it in, she belly, I never make a do. Line up like chopper.
All right guys, so the POR15 is laid down on the rear subframe. It already looks a lot better. It's drying pretty slowly like I thought. So we'll have to wait probably like a couple hours, it seems like, before we can lay down any paint, but yeah, it already looks a lot better. I had to clean the lid of that really well and the inside rim of the actual can because I guess those lids get stuck and then you waste anything that's left in there. So just kind of a tip if you're gonna use that stuff. Pretty easy to use, it spreads out really well. A little bit really does go a long way, so pretty happy about that. A little bit time consuming, a little tedious for what it is, but apparently this stuff works really well and it's pretty durable to like rock chips and stuff like that. So yeah, we should be pretty solid. Now, let's go ahead and see if we can get it fastened in place, at least like mocked up in a way that I feel good about what we've cut away, and we can smooth it all out, and then I can start working on this subframe so that we can lay down the POR15 on that as well. All right guys, check this shit out. Pretty cool. I got it all bolted in. Kind of wondering if it's sticking up too high right here. The bell housing of the transmission's got to sit kind of somewhere in here. And yeah, I'm wondering if it needs to like be dropped down a little bit more. So it's not fully done yet, and the reason why on this side, it's pretty straightforward actually. So this bracket is the bracket from this GD subframe. What I had to do is I had to use the bushing that came with this rack, and by doing that, we're able to get everything to just sit flush, and it's really solid. It doesn't move or anything on this side. I tried using the bushing from the other rack that was still connected to this bracket, and there was play. So yeah, something about the sizing, like the diameter of this, I needed this bushing. But that part works great. This side's where it's a little funky, so if you look from the side, you may not be able to tell, but this piece of the aluminum, it actually sticks up higher than this piece. So this piece mounted up flush to the frame back there, and then this piece, I stuck a spacer, but it's not, I don't want to leave this permanent because this is just a piece of rubber. This is one of those rubber bushings that goes on a top mount intercooler, and it has like the little metal sleeve. I pulled the metal sleeve out because it was too thick, just put in the rubber and then tightened it down. And I mean, it's solid, but that could break down over time. So I want to find like a piece of metal that's a similar size. Yeah, now that I'm looking at this on this side, I kind of don't think it's sticking up too high because these hoses need to sit underneath the plate that goes right here. And so those are already like pretty dang close to the edge. So yeah, we're probably good. I need to clean up that hole. My cut is looking a little rough. All right guys, so with this particular subframe, obviously I had to cut out this to make clearance for the pinion. I believe that piece is the pinion. And then I also had to clearance this as well. So I cut right here, and then I also had to cut down a little bit and down this way, and then also like a little bit along that. And that was so those hard lines that kind of loop up could clear. So that's the cut version. This is the uncut version. So you can see how much I took off. Not a lot, honestly, not really a lot. And even the hole, to be honest, like look at that hole, now look at that hole. It's not like a ton bigger. It's obviously been opened up. It wasn't that bad, but it was pretty tricky to get my angle grinder in there, and which is why it kind of looks so rough. But I'm gonna hit it with a file right now and try to clean that up. So I got the hole all cleaned up, and then the edges of this piece right here that I cut looks a lot cleaner. Actually used the Dremel for that. It was way easier. Use this little like, I don't even know what you call it. It's like a little carbide bit. Just took all of the sharpness down and smoothed it out. So when we lay down some of that POR15 and then some paint, it will look as OEM as I can kind of get it. All right guys, so I have the subframes sitting right here. I actually let them cure overnight with the POR15 on them. And I did go through and scuff them up because on the instructions for the POR15, they do say that if you wait until it is fully cured, that you should scuff it up a little bit before laying down a top coat. And then I've hit it with some cleaner and degreaser one last time. And so now I'm gonna put some of that SEM satin black over the top of this. And you don't necessarily have to put a top coat over this, but I just want to because I think it will make it look a little bit nicer. And that POR15 is like really shiny and really hard to get it to lay like out really flat because you have to brush it on. So yeah, I'm just gonna lay down some paint. We're gonna do the bottom half of these first. I'll probably do a couple coats. We'll let it dry, then we'll flip them over and we'll do the top.
Yo, stand down, yo, jump out, die down. 24/7 up on the line, I know. She has some sweet like Milo. I know which pussy won't send a 5-0. Pretty little demon, freak psycho. My gal them clean right up. Don't feel me a tree fight, yo. Send a boat more lane from a tree right now. The money turn up. As a dog and as I get the product of us on the line. So.
All right guys, so we got 2 coats laid down of the paint and it's still drying up here. They're looking pretty good. They're definitely not perfect, but I honestly don't care if they are because they're just subframes and you're never gonna see them. I'm just glad that they will last and we won't have to deal with any rust issues. So let's move on to just kind of investigating these fittings here. I want to unscrew them and see if there's anything obvious with them as to why they might be leaking. Before I do that though, check this out. Yeah, it is dumping snow out here. Yeah, it's April 5th, I think, and we're getting dumped on. And just a quick side note, completely off topic. I always think it's funny because people think that Reno is a lot like Vegas if they've never been here, and obviously not. We get a ton of snow here and it gets quite cold and we are pretty high elevation. So nothing like Vegas here, guys. It is a desert, but it is a high elevation desert and the climate here is quite a bit different than Vegas. But I digress. Let's jump into the steering rack. All right, so I pulled off this one hard line and honestly the fittings look like they're in really good shape. Nothing's bent, so I don't think that is the problem. I also undid this one. This other side of this hard line doesn't want to come out, so I'm just gonna leave it alone. The guy I bought this off of said that he thought it was coming out of here, like either one of these or one of these, so I might just pull these off too, real quick. Oh, God, that one was tight. I know that you're not supposed to use sealant with these threads either. The fitting is supposed to just create a seal. But I may just like seal up the threads with like some gasket maker, or even have this like liquid thread sealant that came with the quick jacks for all of the hydraulic lines. So that might actually be an even better solution. Don't see anything weird. Huh, yeah, I might just put some of that thread sealant on here and screw everything back together and see what happens. We're not gonna know until I obviously like put some fluid in it and test it, but I'm not really sure what else to do. All right, so I looked at that liquid thread sealant and apparently it is not good to use on stuff that sees heat. So I won't be using that. I think I'm just gonna put a little bit of Permatex Ultra Gray, just dab it on the threads, make sure it doesn't get inside at all. And yeah, hopefully that will be all this needs. It's so funny to me that even the newer Subaru racks that they make have these issues with leaking. That's so weird. Like, I don't know if this is like bad practice or something to be doing this. I don't really know what else to try before just putting it back in the car, you know? I'm sure someone out there will offer some criticism at some point, because that seems to be sort of the thing with YouTube. People love to just flex. Slowly but surely. All right, now let's get her nice and tight. One thing I did notice when loosening this fitting is it was like quite loose, so maybe they just weren't tightened enough. One last fitting to tighten up here. All right, now that this thing's all dry, let's get our steering rack dropped in. All right, so I finally got the little bracket in there. You can kind of see it in there. That piece, and obviously that piece, took some finagling, gonna be honest. It was a little bit funky to get in there, but no big deal. It's actually way easier to take it off than it is to put it back on. So if you need to pull the steering rack again at some point, it's really not a problem. Now I'm just gonna put our bushing in place and then bolt this other side down, and then we can throw this subframe up in the car. Without further ado, let's go throw this under the car. All right, I'm not sure how easy this will be solo, but we'll give it a shot. This thing is way heavier with the steering rack installed. All right, let's figure out why it's not lining up. Oh, there we go. That's how it went. No prob. Look at how nice that looks. Sheesh. So I'm gonna test fit this sway bar. Obviously we can't really hook it up because I don't have any of my other suspension components attached, but yeah, I just want to test fit it. And also I'm gonna have to take it back off because these I'm definitely gonna sandblast and powder coat them in that blackjack. Bars are pretty damn thick. But yeah, man, damn, that fits real nice. Stoked about that. That is a fatty. I'm gonna wait on putting these pieces on. I forget what these are called, but we'll wait because we're probably gonna pull that thing back off at some point. All right, rear subframes going in. I already hung these brackets, obviously. Wasn't 100% sure where they went, so it kind of took me a second. But should be able to bolt this up. Not too much trouble. Get in there. Find the hole. Find the hole. Go to your home. Cool. Come on. Well, there it is, guys. I'll mount it up. And the subframe in place. Man, that looks good under here, doesn't it? With the Raptor liner. Yeah, man, super clean. I'm really stoked. Glad these are refinished because those were pretty time consuming. And now we can move on to some more exciting stuff. And then this piece as well, man. just can't get over how clean this looks in here. Looks so damn good. And you know, it just feels good knowing that I have this better steering rack. And I'm honestly really glad that it didn't take too much modification or messing around with cutting this hole. Yeah, as you can see, it looks like it's in the right position. I don't have the little steering like joint to stick in here to see, but it looks pretty normal to me. It looks like it will fit once we throw it in. So yeah, pretty damn stoked about that. If any of you are considering doing this on a GD, I highly recommend it because it really was not bad. And I do think that the performance gains you get from it are definitely worth the time, money, and effort to put one of those bad boys in. And obviously, if you can find one used like I did, it's definitely that much more worth it. But yeah, it's looking pretty dang clean under here too. Yeah, man, I'm psyched to be putting some stuff back on the car, as I'm sure you can tell. It just feels good knowing that I'm making progress in a way that is allowing me to reassemble things. So I think next what I'm gonna work on is getting more suspension components dialed. The front knuckles, I'm going to sandblast. We're gonna powder coat those. Control arms, knuckles, axles. Although I probably won't do axles yet because we'll need to get the gearbox back in. Which reminds me, I'm also considering opening up this 6-speed case. It really would be nice to put in some new synchros. It was shifting just fine when I bought the car. It did feel like the synchros were getting old though. I'm considering doing that and just showing you guys what I find going in there. I don't really know how to do that. I've watched some videos of other people doing that with those gearboxes and it does seem doable. I do think I would have to invest in a shop press though. I don't think it'd be worth it to pay somebody to press the gears off of those shafts, but yeah, something I'm considering. It would be really cool to change the synchros. I think that thing would shift a lot smoother. It wasn't like bad, there was no grinding or anything, but it felt a little like stiff. Like I really had to like push it into gear rather than it just like wanting to go into gear. So I am considering doing that. I'm not sure when I will get into that. I do think in the next video though, I am going to be working on more of the suspension stuff and getting some of that stuff just refinished, powder coated, etc. So yeah, things like the knuckles will definitely be refinishing. I'm gonna leave the control arms aluminum because I like that raw aluminum, like OEM look. And obviously we will need to put in the coilovers. And then obviously in the rear, same kind of thing. We'll need the trailing arms, the lateral arms, the knuckles back there I'm also gonna be redoing. And we also need to mount up that rear diff. So kind of thinking I'm gonna try to bust all of that out and just make one longer video for all of that stuff. And by that point, we'll have quite a bit reassembled on this car. Still waiting on some parts for the engine. I am looking forward to putting together the whole entire long block. But like I said, I don't have certain things that I really need for it. Waiting on like head gaskets and cam seals and stuff like that. So as soon as that stuff gets here and we have all the things, I will definitely be putting together the rest of the engine. So that'll be nice. Oh, we also need to get the oil pan. I think I am going to splurge and get either the Killer Bee or the IAG baffled pan to go with the other parts that I already have, like the pickup, and the windage tray, etc. So, but that's all I got for this one, guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. Please hit that like button if you haven't already, and consider subscribing to the channel if you want to see more on this build. And I will catch you guys in the next episode. Peace out, my friends.